Amen. Well, good morning. God bless you, everybody. Let's see who is here. I know that some of you are here. So there's me, and there is Christos. Christos anesti, lithos anesti, eukaryotes. And Gary, good morning. God bless you. Christ is risen in black country. His Christ is risen. And who else we have? Bev, whose dog gets almost as many people watching what he is saying as we're watching me. But never mind. Right, don't know what happened there, but something had happened. Anyway, we seem to be back with each other, so that's good. Let me just rearrange that slightly. Some people have disappeared in the interim. Not to worry. Yeah, Bev, whose dog seems to get more views than I do, but there we go. Lovely little dog, beauty. If you haven't seen the interview with Bev's dog, then you can go and look at it now. It should be improving, Christos, a bit. I see it's improved in my own one here. The thing just suddenly went blank. So anyway, there we are. Right, lots of other people. So we have Michelle and Bev, not Squelchy there. It's Squelchy here, I can tell you. Christos, no, somebody called Rhoda, Rhody. It is an unusual, beautiful name, yeah. In English, you would translate it as Rosie. Or of course you could be named after Rhodes itself, which is also named after roses, or maybe roses are named after that. Greg, good morning, God bless you. Hakan Kam, Joan, just had coffee with milk, yum yum. I don't like coffee much. There are one or two people whose coffee I really like, and that's about it. Tracy, good morning. When I was putting in some emojis earlier on, I was thinking about you. God bless you and keep you. Helia, God bless you. I wonder where it is actually beautiful and sunny there, whether there might be some artistic license going on with Bev. It really is, in truth, even more squelchy than normal. Penelope, Christ is risen. Alec, God bless you also. No gardening, raining. Yep. Earl Grey tea. Ugh. I don't like Earl Grey tea. Yuck. Thekla has sent us all sorts of nice little plants there. Now, if you want to have fun for a little while, then get onto Thekla's YouTube. She has done lots of little shorts all around where she lives, different walks. I think they call them trails in America. And there are things like genuine wild turkeys that are lots of little birds and trees and beautiful streams, which I think are called creeks in American, all sorts of things like that. Should Bertie have his own channel, the Orthodog? Maybe, but maybe not called Orthodog. Helia, really sunny in Pembrokeshire. Now I'm jealous. Okay, well that's good. It's nice that it's sunny there because it certainly is not here. Absolutely grim. And there are all sorts of things I need to do outside as well. Anyway, enough of all of this. Chapter 12, verse 12. St. Peter has found himself outside the jail, which is a great thing. Now, one of the things that Tracy does with her walks is she'll often, sometimes, not often, sometimes make a painting of the scene she's looking at and then hold up the painting and there's the scene. Or even improve on the scene, which is very clever and very nice. I really like that. It's jolly good. And I enjoy watching Thekla. God bless you. It's wonderful how that sort of gift. I have some of your, well, photocopies of some of your things through there, actually behind me in my office. I've got one or two others where I live as well, and a couple in old diaries being kept. I can't print off anymore though. My printer doesn't work as well as it used to. Anyway, I rather enjoy this reading. It always strikes me as being funny and very typical, and the sort of thing that somebody really knows somebody. And when Peter had come to himself, he said, "Now I know for certain that the Lord has sent his angel, has delivered me from the hand of Herod and from all the expectation of the Jewish people." That was the last verse and the last time. So when he had considered this, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a girl named Rhoda came to answer. When she recognized Peter's voice, because of her gladness, she did not open the gate, but ran in and announced that Peter stood before the gate. But they said to her, "You're beside yourself." Yet she kept insisting it was so. So they said, "It's his angel." Now Peter continued knocking. Why didn't they just go and look? Peter continued knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. But motioning to them with his hand to keep silent, he declared to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, "Go, tell these things to James and to the brethren." And he departed and went to another place. Then, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers about what had become of Peter. But when Herod had searched for him and not found him, he examined the guards and commanded they should be put to death. And then he went down from Judea to Caesarea and stayed there. Let me assume that's Herod went down to Caesarea. Okay, could have been Peter. It's not all that certain actually, because Peter would have stayed with St. Philip, but we think it's Herod. It makes sense theologically as well. So, verse 12. When he had considered this, this is not actually there in Greek, but is assumed in English. And that means he's considering what had happened to him. But many others say, including some of the church fathers, say that it is better that he is considering what to do next. What should I do next? I'm outside of prison. I'm not going to be executed in the morning. Now what should I do? So when he had considered, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. So he's got to wonder what to do next. He needs to tell the church, and he needs to be out of Herod's way, and also, for that matter, out of the way of the disciples. So first job, tell the church. So he hurries off to the house of Mary, the mother of John Mark, the evangelist. Now, it's interesting, it's called the house of Mary, the mother of John Mark, rather the house of, George, the father of John Mark. So we can assume that John Mark's father has died. It sounds like it's a wealthy family because there are plenty of people gathered there and they have a maid. What else do we know about John Mark? He's the one who ran naked into the garden when the soldiers came to arrest Jesus. He was only wrapped in a linen cloth. Why? I don't know. It had been quite chilly. It's not the sort of thing to go to a meal to. But perhaps he had taken his clothes off and rolled himself up in order to go to sleep in the garden. And he runs away naked into the garden rather than get arrested. Later on, he worked with St. Paul and Barnabas. Then Paul didn't like him much, so Barnabas and John Mark went off together away from Paul. And then eventually Mark ends up working with Peter. And it's quite interesting because Mark's gospel and Peter's writings have a similarity about them, which leads people to suspect that really the gospel of Mark is St. Peter's writing, his stories and his writing. Not his writing, his stories and his teaching. Okay, so that gives you some idea about what's going on there. What are they doing when he arrives? In the middle of the night, remember? It's nighttime, it's cold. He and the soldiers have all been fast asleep. And when he arrives at the house of Mary, he discovers that the church is at prayer. Now, isn't that an interesting thing? It's often forgotten that it's nighttime and these people are praying. They're holding an all-night vigil, just as we do from time to time now, when we want something or other answered. You go and show God the intensity of your desire by staying up, not going to bed, sacrificing your sleep. So they're holding a night vigil of prayer for what? Well, we know that they are enthusiastically knocking at God's door, asking him for Peter's safety. But they don't really think that God is going to release them. Good morning, Nicoletta. Christos enviat. You're on the way to Lincoln. We've been missing you. So there we go. And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a girl named Rhoda came to answer. Rhoda. English, we would translate that as Rosie, probably. So Rosie comes along. She's probably, it says a girl, but the word itself in Greek at that time meant a servant girl, probably a youngster. I remember my mother saying that they used to have, I think her name might have been Rosie. They had my grandmother had a servant girl, I think her name was Rosie, and she lived with them for many years and came to them when she was about 12 or 13, which seems perfectly horrific nowadays, but lived with them until she got married. And when she got married, she left off living with them, but they lived to, they kept in touch with her for many years afterwards. In fact, I think for the whole rest of my grandmother's life. I think Rosie might have predeceased her. Anyway, it had been a bit like that. So this maid, the servant girl, youngster, probably 13, 14 years old, and she's excitable. Peter's knocking at the door of the gate. The angel's not going to open this gate for him. He's got to go back to ordinary life. Crack on as before. So along comes Rhoda, verse 14. When she recognized Peter's voice, it's likely that everybody that Luke is writing to and for knows Rhoda. One of those people that's well known to the church. Oh, Rhoda. Rhoda. My apologies, Rhoda, if I'm letting you down. But the great Rhoda, she's done it again. Smashed all the plates, left Peter standing at the door. When she recognized Peter's voice, because of her gladness, I like Rhoda, she did not open the gate, but ran in and announced that Peter stood before the gate. Oh dear. Do you notice that she's doing much as the ladies did at the end of Mark's Gospel? You see that? It's like a resurrection of Peter, isn't it? And who gets to see Peter? The least likely person in the household. This silly girl, Rhoda. And old Rosie, she doesn't open the gate. She just runs in and says, Peter's at the gate, Peter's at the gate. And they're all, yeah, we know you, Rosie. You smashed the plates. So recognized Peter's voice. Because of her gladness, she did not open the gate, ran in, and announced that Peter stood before the gate. Bless her. And so it's just the same way as the apostles were told the good news of the resurrection by the myrrh-bearing women. And just like the apostles, they didn't believe her. What do they say? They say something similar. But they said to her, you're beside yourself. Actually, the Greek says they kept saying to her, carried on saying to her, and it then says, yet she kept saying, insisting it was so. So there's a sort of shouting match going on there. You're nuts. No, I'm not. He's standing at the gate. Sorry, Rhoda. We all know you. You're a nutter. No, she's standing at the gate. You've lost it, Rhoda, honey. He's in prison. No, he's at the gate. And so on. That's the sort of feeling you get here. Sort of person that goes off shopping, does all sorts of things and comes back without any of the ingredients to the cake that day. She is a delight. Probably an irritating delight, but a delight nevertheless. She kept insisting it was so. So they said, "It's his angel." That's an interesting thing, isn't it? They were more prepared to believe that the St. Peter's guardian angel had appeared at the gate than Peter. And that brings us back onto so much of the conversation we had yesterday. So I'm going to slightly gloss over that, though if you want to look it up, you'll find the church fathers don't. They go to town on this particular idea, but we've actually done it before. So they're having a shouting match. They think, okay, it's guardian angel, that's who's turned up. Meanwhile, outside in the cold, in the street, worried in case he's going to get rearrested, is St. Peter. What's he doing? Verse 16. Now Peter continued knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. They've been accusing poor Rhoda of being out of her mind, and the word astonished actually in Greek means ecstatic, out of their mind, out of their bodies. So she's out of her mind, they're out of their bodies, ecstasis. They've also been rendered insane by seeing him sitting there. Peter keeps on knocking, and this is a way of reminding us that we have to keep on with the good news, keep on knocking at the door, keep on saying to people, you've got to believe this, you've got to believe this, we're not going to go away until you believe this. So Christ has risen, and St. Peter has been let out of prison too. See the way the message is very similar. And we're meant to think of these messages as being similar. Peter has, in a very real sense, been risen from the tomb. In the case of the Lord, through the stone. In the case of Peter, through a great metal gate, and soldiers, just like the Lord, guarding himself in there too. We're meant to have these ideas in our head. And astonished to see him, but motioning with them with his hand to keep silent, because of course they're all shouting their heads off in the middle of the night now. Shh, be quiet, I'm in hiding. So he has to explain to them, not so loud. Motioning them with his hand to keep silent, he declared to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. Okay, and he then said, "Go tell these things to James and to the brethren." And he departed and went to another place. So St. Peter has to shut them up. Be quiet, you lot. I've got a message for you I need to tell you now. And then he explains how the Lord led him out. The angel led him out. And of course the angel was there on behalf of the Lord, led him out. And this is an idea of how resurrection happens. You are led from death to life, from imprisonment to freedom, from oppression also to freedom, from a place of darkness and incarceration to a place of light and airiness and freedom. Okay? The word there, led out, also usually would be the one that would be used for being led to execution. So rather than being led to execution as Herod intended, he is led to freedom. And you get this deliberate idea of the juxtaposition between the two things, from being led to execution, led to freedom, with St. Peter, in that one little word there. Okay? He brought him out of the jail, out of the prison. Then he says, "Go tell these things to James and to the brethren." Now it's interesting that James is mentioned there. This is not, of course, that James has been executed. There's no point in telling him. He's dead and he knows already. But to whom? James, the brother of the Lord. Now James, the brother of the Lord, or cousin of the Lord, has been made the leader of the church in Jerusalem. He is the one who stays there, and he oversees, which is what bishop means, he oversees, he's the bishop therefore, the mission in Jerusalem and Judea. Okay? He has all sorts of other glorious names as well, like James the Just, James the Righteous. People go to him in Jerusalem to have their problems solved. He's called the Brother of God. What a name. The liturgy of St. James is attributed to him and named after him and is used on his feast days. It is said that he was martyred by stoning and by being clubbed to death with a fuller's club. So often if you go into a Roman Catholic church, you'll see him with a great big club at his feet. Now fullers are people who are tanners, and they would beat, I think they were tanners, they would beat the skins with a big club to make them soft, and he was beaten to death with a fuller's club. Sweetie pies. And that happened around about either in AD 62 or 69. There's disagreement about it. So 7-year disagreement. Probably 62, that I think makes more sense. 69 was the time of the destruction of Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem had been destroyed by then, so I think it was probably pre-destruction. And then St. Peter leaves the church in safety. He goes away to another place. It doesn't say where he goes, we don't know. And the next we hear of St. Peter, he's back in Jerusalem, and that's in chapter 15. But apart from that, St. Luke doesn't mention him again. He takes part in the Council of Jerusalem when St. Paul wants definitive teaching about whether or not Gentiles need to be circumcised or not, Gentile men need to be circumcised or not, and both St. Peter and St. James agree that they don't need to be. And then apart from that, we don't hear any more of St. Peter. Everything else really is about St. Paul. That's because St. Luke went around with St. Paul and knows a great deal about that, and not much about St. Peter, and not all that interested in what happens to him after that. So everything else we know about St. Peter comes from church tradition. The idea of him being crucified upside down, we know he was in Antioch for a bit, that he went to Rome, we know that to be the case, all those sorts of things, but actually day-to-day life and what he did and what he taught and all the rest of it, we only have his letters to say so, and otherwise, apart from that, he disappears. Meanwhile, daytime comes. Herod is rubbing his hands. He's going to please all the Jewish people by executing, or rather murdering, St. Peter, having him lynched. Then, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers about what had become of Peter. Bet there was. And when Herod had searched for him and not found him, he examined the guards and commanded they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea and stayed there. Okay. So you think about it, Herod really does miss his opportunity. This was his opportunity, his one and only opportunity really, to come to Christ. Something very amazing, very special has happened, but he doesn't see any of it. He is not interested in what happens there. So Peter has disappeared. Herod has got the witness of the chains. They are unbroken. The manacles are still locked. Herod has the witness of the jail walls. There's no hole in them. No hole at all. Somebody didn't creep through and release him. He has the witness of the soldiers as well, the guards. So everything is intact and everything is just as it should be. And what is different is that there's no Peter. And you see again the way this is so like the resurrection of the Lord. There's no dead body inside the tomb. There's no Peter inside the jail. There's no destruction to the tomb. The tomb is as it should be, but there's no one in there. except for an angel, which when you go and look, and they can't find him anywhere. He's disappeared. And rather than seeking life now and coming to Christ and being a saint, being the first really importantly great saint and capable of changing the world completely, he seeks death. And he causes death immediately. He rejects the message, and that rejection of message immediately causes death. And he has the poor guards put to death. And then, finally, he goes away from the scene of witness or the resurrection. He goes away from the release of St. Peter, from the place of miracles, from the place of where God meets with humankind, to the place which witnesses to the kingship of God himself, Jerusalem and Judea. And he goes down to Caesarea, which witnesses only to earthly power. And there we'll discover next week that he becomes very pig-headed indeed. There we go. Sad, isn't it? Right. Nicoletta is on the way to Lincoln. That's very nice news. We shall be seeing you again. It's a shame though, Nicoletta, while you've been away, it's been nice weather. Now you're back. Look what you've done to us. Good morning, Subdeacon Ahmed. Thekla is bemoaning the fact that her staying up was not for holy reasons, just insomnia. Oh well, in the end, you made good use of the time. I don't know German, I'm afraid, Simon. So I don't know what that means. I know Vater means father. There we go. Simon, looking for the love button? We're all looking for the love button. Somewhere here, inside you. And press the love button inside you and let love pour forth richly upon everybody. Good morning, Mason. God bless you and keep you. Ahmed says, these parallels of the Lord's resurrection reminded me of the line from the Psalm, Palm Sunday Koinion. Woo! All we who are dead in sin, in thee, O Jesus, are made alive. Amen. Resurrection every day in our lives by his power. Quite right. Okay, yes, indeed. I mean, that is the idea. Christ's resurrection and our resurrection is not something we look forward to in the future. We are living or not living the resurrection life now. And we need to be aware of that our resurrection begins as we turn to Christ. So we put on Christ, as we wear Christ, as we become in Christ and for Christ and through Christ because of Christ. And as communion infiltrates every part of who we are, then our resurrection becomes more and more and more real. Okay? That's the way things are there. Good morning, or rather, good late evening, Miss Connie. God bless you and keep you. I can imagine you there, nice autumnal day in Australia, sitting there as it's going dark. Maybe it is quite dark already. Yeah, it will be quite dark already. And you are drinking your hot chocolate and eating your bourbon biscuit prior to going off to bed, looking out into the garden to see if there are any hoppity things, eating your cauliflowers, lettuces maybe, and things like that. Okay. I had a great pleasure yesterday. I went to see a couple who had a baby a little while ago, and I've not been able to see either them or their baby since, through Pascha, pressure of work, and all sorts of other things getting in the way. But I rearranged everything yesterday afternoon and managed to spend about half an hour with them at 3 o'clock yesterday. And they have the most delicious little baby. Who is very, very young and beautiful and huge child. So there we are. If you would also pray for another couple we have who are expecting a baby, even as long as 2 weeks ago, certainly up to 10 days ago. And last Sunday was the last day when they were expecting it to, him, because we know it's already a boy, we already know it's a boy, him to appear on this planet in full form. He still hasn't been born as of first thing this morning. So maybe you'd like to pray for her. Her name is Adina. And I think that I was teasing Adina last Sunday and saying, maybe you're going to give birth to an elephant and he needs 10 months gestation rather than just the normal 9. Which was strange because apparently she and her husband had been discussing that very thing themselves only earlier on that day. There we go, what a funny life. Christos says, how can such resurrection life now be reconciled to the problems and tragedies of life? Okay. The Lord doesn't anywhere at all promise us an easy life. Nowhere at all. In fact, he himself demonstrates that an easy life is not always the will of God, the Father. Our Lord comes, and if you think about his life, no part of it was easy. That complete self-emptying that he had took on everything that we have, and in the end, the Lord shares in all of human suffering in a most brutal form in the end, not just in his life, not just in the way that he has to self-empty in order to become a human being, or suffer rejection, or any of those other things, but also the cruelty of the passion, all of it, from his arrest in the garden through to his burial. Not even properly buried in a hurry. All of that, in that, he enters into everything, every part of suffering that a human being can enter into, absolutely innocently. We know he's absolutely innocent of any wrong. So he's not being punished for our sins or anybody else's sins. He is entering into the cruelty and injustice and horror and tragedy that is the lot of us who live in the fall. And yet he does not rail against God, God the Father. He accepts what is coming his way. He does not rail like the thieves do on the cross about the injustice of what is happening to him. Even when he's before Pilate, he tries to teach. He explains also to the high priest in calmness and self-possession. He accepts the scourges, the crowns, the torment, the mocking, the spitting, the slapping, the cross, the nails, everything else, the spear even, without complaining, without saying anything, innocent as a lamb, without opening his mouth, a pure lamb. And in that he shows us actually, in many ways, how to put up with the suffering of this world. At the same time, he makes promises to the one thief on one side and relieves his suffering by doing so. He doesn't relieve the pain that the thief is going through. He simply says to him, "You will be with me in paradise." His mother at the foot of the cross, according to Simeon, had a sword pierce her heart too. Her suffering is not relieved, but she is adopted into the household of John, and John into her household. The one is to look after the other, and she becomes in that the mother of the entire church. So we have all of that as well. During his life, whenever he saw evil and cruelty and other things, he railed against that on other people's behalf. So when he saw the cruelty of the people in power, he was not frightened to tell them so, and he accepted their destruction as a result. When he saw the cruelty of leprosy and madness and demon possession and death. He healed all of it. Paralysis and so on, healed all of it. And therefore, I think we have to do something similar ourselves. We try and alleviate other people's suffering. We pray for them. We become the answer to the prayer for other people. But we don't rail against the suffering that we ourselves have. So I think we can pray for those people who are going through suffering, and we should act in order to relieve their suffering. And that action needs to be physical and political. It needs to be actual, not just saying prayers and mouthing nice words, but actually doing something about it, cracking on with it, doing something about it, bringing love where there's hatred and so on. And that way we then emulate him. But it is the nature of the world and of the fallen world to be a place that is beautiful and yet cracked. You see it actually even in the way that the world itself is. You look at the structure of the earth. It is beautiful and yet it has these cracks in it, these tectonic plates. And when one rubs up against another or splits away from another, we get these terrible earthquakes or volcanoes and other things which cause terrible destruction. And then, of course, we also, through our own sin, are involved in polluting the air, the water, the skies, everything. Climate change, blah, 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 all these sorts of things are a sign of our own sin, our own self-destruction. So the poor people in Afghanistan, particularly in Baghlan, where I grew up, are suffering the most appalling floods at the moment, washing people away. And my own village, Fabrika Baghlan, has been affected. And up the road in Baghlan Major as well, and Pulikhormi. You know, these are terrible things. The Khundus River burst its banks about 2 weeks ago and flooded all over the area. What does God do about it? In the end, he shows us he joined us in it. When you see the suffering there, actually God is intimately woven into that tragedy. He does not stand away from it. He came and he incarnated himself in the tragedy which is our world, and by us becoming part of him we become saved. It does not mean to say life gets easier. In fact, it gets more difficult, because the more you are saved, the more the world, the more Satan will then turn against you. Easy to say, isn't it? But when you see people suffering like they are in so many parts of this world, often one just feels completely filleted by the whole thing, and it's very tempting to spend your entire life in tears. But we can't do that either. No. We must also incarnate joy, the joy of the resurrection, and bring that to other people who are suffering, without ignoring the fact that they're suffering, and by doing something about their suffering, even if that just simply means sitting with them and holding their hand. And sometimes that's all you can do. Okay? We're running short of time. I've got to go. But all the people that we normally pray for, I pray for in the service we're about to have. So you know who they are. We've been praying for them over and over again. So carry on praying for them. God bless them. Seems so difficult to incarnate joy. My goodness, doesn't it just? And you know, there needs to be the same amount of crow's feet of joy around your eyes as there does sort of whatever they're called here, where you are weeping for others. It's the same thing altogether. My face has become unbelievably lined. I had somebody here a little while ago. He took photographs of me. He said he liked my beard. He liked the fact that, Actually, there were so many lines in my face that it gave me character, apparently. And yet, you know, when I look at my face, I can see, okay, what the kids used to say? When I was looking at them saying, oh my goodness, what's this? I say, Father's giving us some wrinkles. And they were so naughty, lovely and naughty. And you know, we have to have wrinkles. It's a terrible thing to reach the end of your life without wrinkles. And those wrinkles are wrinkles of astonishment, of love, of concern, of joy, of sadness, of anger. All of these things, you must express the whole lot. Right, enough of that. God bless you and keep you. God willing, there will be someone's little short or something, or a little interview with someone, or pictures from my garden, or there's some lovely plants just outside here at the moment in full bloom, and the irises are just gorgeous. The rain is just ghastly, and my garden back at New Valam, even newer Valam, is getting into some sort of order. It takes an awful long time to dig up stuff though. Lots and lots and lots of roots of pernicious weeds needing to dig up. Anyway, on that note, God bless you and keep you. Inshallah, there will be a nice sermon about the myrrh-bearing women on Sunday for you to take notice of. God bless you and keep you. Yeah, Bev and I enjoyed looking at them the other day. There's still even more irises at the moment, Bev. They're just magnificent. They're just so beautiful. Right. If you liked it, do a thumbs up. You can always share. You can do all sorts of other things with this video. I gather you can even download it and embed it into other things and change what I say completely. It's a little bit frightening nowadays with artificial intelligence, but there we go. Let's hope that people use a bit of their own real intelligence. Hello, David and Mary. Christ is risen. Bechtel. That's an interesting name. Your prayers. Bye-bye. Here we go.